I spent 5 years quietly keeping the lights on and the mortgage paid, terrified that one missed check would crumble my sister's fragile world. But the afternoon, I finally drove away, leaving the house I had saved more times than I could count. Tara didn't say thank you. Instead, she posted a smiling selfie to Facebook with 6 words that would eventually cost her everything. Finally, the freeloader is gone. The tape gun made a harsh, tearing sound that echoed off the empty walls of my bedroom. It was the sound of finality. I smoothed the brown packing tape over the flaps of the last cardboard box. Pressing down hard enough to turn my fingertips white, the room, which had been my sanctuary and my prison for 5 years, was now just a square of beige carpet and pale walls. It looked small or empty. It looked like nothing. I picked up the box. It was heavy, filled with books I had read to escape the noise of the house, but I carried it without groaning. I was used to carrying heavy things. Downstairs, the house was quiet in a way that felt performative. My sister, Tara, was in the living room. She was sitting on the overstuffed sectional sofa I had paid to have steam cleaned 3 months ago after her twins tracked mud through the house. She was scrolling on her phone, her thumb flicking upward in a rhythmic, hypnotic motion. She didn't look up when I walked past the archway. "The box in my arms. I'm leaving," I said. My voice sounded rusty, unused. Tara glanced up then. She gave me a tight, straining smile. The kind you give a cashier when you are trying to be polite but really just want your receipt. "Okay," she said. "Drive safe. Don't forget to leave the spare key on the counter." That was it. 5 years of living together. 5 years of me sleeping in the guest room so she could have the master suite after her husband left. 5 years of late-night talks where she cried on my shoulder about how unfair the world was, and I rubbed her back and told her we would figure it out. 5 years of being the second parent, the second income, the emotional ballast of the Kelly household. "Okay," I said. I put the key on the granite countertop. It made a sharp clink. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. The air in Briar Glen was thick and humid, smelling of cut grass and impending rain. My car, a 10-year-old sedan that needed new struts I couldn't afford yet, was packed to the roof. I squeezed the last box into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and turned the key. The engine coughed once before catching. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. It was a beautiful house, a sprawling 2-story colonial with blue siding and white shutters. It looked like the American dream. It looked like stability. From the street, you couldn't see the water damage in the basement, or the way the furnace rattled in the winter, or the tension that hummed in the air like a high-voltage wire. I put the car in drive and headed toward the highway. I was 33 years old, and I was finally going home, or at least, to a place that was solely mine. The drive to the city took 45 minutes. I had rented a studio apartment in a converted warehouse district. It wasn't glamorous. The floors were concrete, the windows were drafty, and the view was of a brick alleyway. But the rent was exactly 1/3 of my paycheck, and the lease had only my name on it. By the time I hauled the last box up the 3 flights of stairs, my shirt was stuck to my back with sweat and my arms were trembling. I sat down on the floor, leaning back against the wall, and closed my eyes. Silence. Real, heavy, beautiful silence. No television blaring cartoons. No stomping feet from the floor above. No voice calling my name from the other room, asking where the milk was, or if I could transfer $20 for pizza. I exhaled, a long, shuddering breath that seemed to empty my lungs completely. I was free. I reached for my phone, intending to order takeout for my first solitary meal. There was a notification on the screen, a text from Jessa. "I am so sorry." The text read, "Please tell me you have seen this, so I don't have to be the one to show you." My stomach dropped. It was a physical sensation, like missing a step on a staircase. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. I had muted Tara on social media weeks ago, a small act of rebellion during the final, tense month of living there. I clicked on Jessa's message. It was a screenshot. At the top was Tara's profile picture, a heavily filtered shot where her skin looked like porcelain. Below it was a photo she must have taken 20 minutes ago. It was a selfie taken in the driveway. In the background, blurry but recognizable, was the rear bumper of my car pulling away. Tara was smiling, a little smirk playing on her lips, her eyes bright and defiant. The caption consisted of 6 words. Finally, "The freeloader is gone." She had added a relieved face emoji. I stared at the phone, the words blurred, then sharpened again. Freeloader. I read it again. Freeloader. The shock was cold, like ice water dumped over my head. I clicked the image to expand it, desperate to find some context, some joke I was missing. But the comments below the post killed that hope instantly. "About time," wrote one of Tara's high school friends, a woman I had met at barbecues, a woman whose kids I had watched while she and Tara drank wine on the porch. "You are a saint for putting up with it as long as you did. Proud of you for setting boundaries." "Sweetie," wrote our Aunt Linda, who lived 3 states away and hadn't visited in a decade. "Family is hard, but you have to put yourself and the kids first. Some people just refuse to grow up." Another comment read, "Enjoy your peace." "Mama." I felt bile rise in my throat. I dropped the phone onto the concrete floor as if it had burned me. Freeloader. The injustice of it hit me so hard I actually gasped. I stood up and paced the small room, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to log in right now and type out a response in all capital letters. I wanted to upload the bank transfer screenshots I had on my phone. I wanted to list every single grocery bill, every electric bill, every time I filled her gas tank because she was running on fumes and payday was 3 days away. Freeloader? I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cool glass. My reflection stared back at me, pale, tired, with dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. I couldn't do it. I couldn't fight her in the comments section. The thought of dragging our dirty laundry out for the entire town of Briar Glen to see made me feel physically ill. If I defended myself, I would look defensive. If I listed what I paid, they would say I was keeping score. Tara had already set the narrative. She was the struggling single mom, the hero holding it all together. I was the younger sister with no kids and a mid-level office job who had crashed in her guest room. That was the story. And looking at the comments piling up, I realized it was a story people wanted to believe. It was cleaner. It made sense. I sank back down onto the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. The anger drained away, leaving a hollow, aching shame. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was a freeloader. Hadn't I lived there? Hadn't I used the water and the heat? Maybe my contributions hadn't been enough. Tara always said money was tight. Tara was always stressed. Maybe I should have done more. I closed my eyes and let the last 5 years replay in my mind, trying to find the truth in the murky waters of memory. It started when Tara's husband, Mark, walked out. I was 28, living in a decent apartment, saving for a down payment on a small condo. Tara had called me at 2 a.m, sobbing so hard I couldn't understand her. I drove over in my pajamas. I stayed the night. Then I stayed the weekend. Then, a week later. She asked if I could move in, just for a little while, she had said, her eyes red and swollen. Just until I get on my feet. I can't be alone in this big house. Ava, I can't do it. I moved in. I gave up my apartment. I put my furniture in storage. The financial arrangement had been loose at first. Just pitch in what you can, Tara had said, but what you can quickly became specific. I remembered the first time she asked for mortgage help. It was 3 months after I moved in. She came into the kitchen holding a piece of paper, her hands trembling. "They are going to foreclose," she had whispered. "Mark missed 3 payments before he left. I need $2,000 by Friday, or we lose the house. I had $2,000 in my savings account. It was my emergency fund. I transferred it to her that afternoon. You are saving our lives," she had told me, hugging me so hard my ribs cracked. "I will pay you back as soon as the child support gets sorted out." But the child support never seemed to get sorted out. Or if it did, It wasn't enough. Then came the utilities. "Eva, the electric bill is crazy this month," she would say, tossing the envelope on the counter. "I don't know how I'm going to cover it and buy groceries." So I paid the electric bill, then the water bill, then the internet. It became a rhythm. I paid for the groceries because I was the one stopping at the store on my way home from work. I paid for the kids' school supplies because Tara was short this week. I paid for the car repairs when her transmission blew, and the mortgage. That was the big one. Every month, like clockwork. Tara would get anxious around the first. She would talk about how high the interest rate was, how the property taxes were killing her. "Can you cover half this month?" she would ask. "Just 600? Then it became 800, then 1,000. It keeps going up," she would say, looking distressed. "Variable rates are a nightmare." I transferred the money, always through cash apps, Venmo, Zelle, Cash, to "keep it simple," she said. I sat up straighter on the floor of my new apartment, a frown creasing my forehead. A detail pricked at my memory, sharp and uncomfortable. I had never actually seen a mortgage statement, not once in 5 years. Tara always handled the mail. She was obsessive about it. She would meet the mail carrier at the driveway. Whenever I asked about the specific numbers, she would wave a hand and say, "It is too complicated to explain. Just trust me. It is a mess." Or she would forward me a screenshot of a banking app, just a cropped image showing a total due, $3,200. I had paid half of that, sometimes more, for years. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the suspicion. Tara was my sister. She was messy. Yes. She was dramatic. Yes. But she wouldn't lie about the mortgage. That money kept a roof over my nieces' heads. It kept us safe. But the word freeloader kept flashing in my mind like a neon sign. If I was paying half the mortgage, and all the utilities, and the food, how was I a freeloader? I stood up and walked to the kitchen area. Needing a drink of water, the tap sputtered before spitting out a stream of clear, cold water. I drank from my cupped hands. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I had to. It wasn't a text this time. It was an email from my new landlord, Mr. Henderson. Subject, lease addendum/income verification. Dear Ms. Kelly, I am reviewing your file for the long-term lease upgrade we discussed. Since you are self-employed as well as employed at the clinic, could you please provide the last 2 years of bank statements or tax returns to verify the steady income? I just need to cross-reference the debt-to-income ratio. The previous pay stubs were great, but the corporate office requires a bit more history for the 24-month lease. Thanks, Dave. I sighed. I wasn't technically self-employed, but I did some medical coding consulting on the side to make extra cash that usually went straight to Tara. I needed to dig up my old records. I went back to the boxes. I found the one marked office/docs and ripped the tape off. Inside were manila folders I hadn't looked at in ages. I flipped through them. Taxes, 2022. Taxes, 2023. Car insurance. And then, stuck at the back, a thick blue folder labeled House Stuff. I frowned. I didn't remember making a folder called House Stuff. I pulled it out. Inside were a chaotic jumble of papers. Receipts I had kept for tax purposes when I bought a home office desk. A warranty for the dishwasher I had bought for Tara's house 2 Christmases ago, and a stack of printouts. I sat down on the floor and spread them out. They were email threads. I had printed them out years ago when I was trying to help Tara refinance. Before she told me she handled it herself, one email caught my eye. It was from a loan officer at a local bank, dated 3 years ago. Hi, Tara. As discussed, we can't put Eva on the title without a full credit check and income verification, but if she is just contributing rent, that doesn't count toward your qualifying income unless you have a formal lease agreement. Contributing rent. I stared at the words. To the bank. I wasn't a co-owner or a partner. I was a tenant, and Tara had been claiming my money as rent to qualify for loans. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. I put the papers back in the folder. I didn't want to look at them tonight. Tonight was supposed to be about freedom. I shoved the box into the closet and ordered a pizza. The next morning, I went to work at Larkridge Medical Billing. The office was a sea of gray cubicles and buzzing fluorescent lights. It was quiet. Repetitive work. Verifying insurance codes and fighting with claims adjusters. But I liked the logic of it. Codes had meanings. Numbers added up. If there was an error, you could find it, fix it, and the balance would zero out. I walked to my desk, keeping my head down. I felt exposed, as if the word freeloader was stamped on my forehead in red ink. "Morning, Eva," said Brenda from the next cubicle. She was a kind, older woman who usually brought in donut holes on Tuesdays. "Morning, Brenda," I said, turning on my computer. There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. I saw what your sister posted," Brenda said. Her voice was low, sympathetic, but laced with that burning curiosity people have when they witness a train wreck. My face went hot. "Oh, yeah. I was surprised," Brenda continued, leaning around the partition. "I always thought you helped out a lot over there. Didn't you say you paid for the new roof last year?" I froze. I had mentioned that. I had complained about the cost of the roof shingles in the break room because I had to pick up extra shifts to cover it. Yes, I said. "I did." "Well," Brenda said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Family is complicated, but that post, it has a lot of shares. Honey, even Dr. Evans saw it." Dr. Evans was the head of the practice, my boss. I felt sick. "Dr. Evans saw it?" "He mentioned it this morning, said something about drama. You know how he hates drama." I turned to my computer screen, my hands trembling on the keyboard. It wasn't just a Facebook spat anymore. It was bleeding into my real life. My professional reputation was being painted with the brush of irresponsibility. A freeloader doesn't sound like someone you trust with sensitive medical billing data. A freeloader sounds like a liability. I worked through the morning in a haze of anxiety. Every time a coworker walked by, I wondered if they had seen it. I wondered if they were looking at my shoes, my bag, wondering if I had bought them with mooched money. I skipped lunch. I stayed at my desk and pulled up my bank account online. I needed to see it. I needed to reassure myself that I wasn't crazy. I filtered the search results for the last 2 years. Search term: Tara. The screen filled with red numbers. Transfer to Tara Kelly, $800. Transfer to Tara Kelly, $400. Transfer to Tara Kelly, $1,200. Transfer to Tara Kelly, $650. I scrolled down, and down, and down. It was thousands of dollars, tens of thousands. I looked at the memo lines: utilities, groceries, house help, mortgage, and then I saw something that made me pause. On the 1st of every month, for the last year, I had transferred exactly $1,422 to Tara. The memo line just said, house, $1,422. It was such a specific number, not a round number like helping out. It looked like a bill. I opened a spreadsheet and started typing in the numbers. I needed to see the total. I needed to know exactly how much the freeloader had cost herself. By 5 o'clock, my eyes were burning. I saved the spreadsheet to a personal flash drive and put it in my purse. I walked out of the office with my head high. But inside, I was crumbling. I drove back to the studio apartment. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the brick walls. I unlocked the door and stepped into the silence. It felt different today. Yesterday, the silence felt like freedom. Today, it felt like isolation. I sat on the floor. I still didn't have a couch, and ate a sandwich I had made that morning. My phone chimed. I flinched. I didn't want to look, but it was a text message, not a social media notification. It was from Tara. "Hey." The text read, casual, breezy, as if she hadn't destroyed my reputation 24 hours ago. "Since you are independent now, make sure you switch the internet out of your name by Friday. I am switching providers to a bundle deal, and they said the current account has to be closed or transferred." I stared at the screen. I read the text 3 times. Switch the internet out of your name, I typed back, my fingers flying before I could stop myself. What do you mean? The internet isn't in my name. You set it up when you moved in. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. LOL. No, Tara replied. Remember? My credit was shot after Mark left. You let me use your info to set it up. It has been in your name the whole time. Just call them and cancel it so I can get the new deal. I froze. I didn't remember that. I racked my brain, trying to find the memory. I remembered moving in. I remembered her complaining about the slow Wi-Fi. I remembered her saying she would handle the upgrade. I did not remember giving her permission to put the account in my name. I didn't remember signing a contract. If the internet was in my name, what else was in my name? A cold dread settled in my stomach, heavier than the shame, heavier than the anger. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about identity. I looked at the text again. You let me use your info. Did I? Or did she just take it? I stood up. The exhaustion that had been dragging at my bones for days suddenly evaporated, replaced by a sharp, vibrating alertness. I walked over to the closet and pulled out the box with the house stuff folder. I carried it to the middle of the room. I wasn't going to reply to her text. I wasn't going to comment on her Facebook post. I wasn't going to call Aunt Linda and cry. I was going to find out the truth. I grabbed a notebook and a pen. I sat down cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by the few possessions I had in the world. Step 1, I wrote, verify the internet account. Step 2, I wrote, pull bank statements for 5 years. Step 3, I wrote, find out whose name is on the mortgage. The freeloader narrative was a story she told the world. But stories have plot holes, and I was going to find every single one of them. I picked up my phone and dialed the customer service number for the local internet provider. Thank you for calling Briar Glen Connectivity, the automated voice said. Please enter the last 4 digits of the account holder's social security number. I hesitated for a second. Then, I typed in my own last 4 digits. Thank you, the voice said cheerfully. Hello, Eva. How can we help you today? The robot voice used my name. My blood ran cold. I hung up. I sat there in the darkening room, the silence pressing in against my ears. It was true. The account was mine. I had been paying Tara for the internet bill for 5 years, thinking I was reimbursing her, while legally, I was the one responsible for it the whole time. And if I was responsible, why was I paying her? Why hadn't I just paid the company directly? Because she wanted control. She wanted the money to pass through her hands. I looked down at my notebook. I underlined step 2 so hard the pen tore through the paper. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to audit. I opened my laptop, and the light from the screen illuminated my face in the dark apartment. I logged into my bank portal again. This time, I didn't feel sick. I felt cold. I felt clinical. I was done being the sister. I was done being the helper. I was the auditor now. And I was going to account for every single penny. I clicked download statement. Let's see what else you lied about. Tara. I waited for the file to load, my finger hovering over the mouse, ready to click open the first document of my new life. The download bar filled up, green and steady. Download complete. I opened the file. The timeline began. The unraveling had started. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment everything changed. This was the moment the victim died, and the prosecutor was born. I started to read. The cheap inkjet printer I had bought at a discount store was struggling. It whirred and clicked, spitting out page after page of bank statements onto the concrete floor of my studio apartment. The air smelled faintly of warm plastic and ozone. I sat cross-legged in the center of the paper storm, armed with a pack of highlighters I had pilfered from my supply box. It was Tuesday night. I had not spoken to Tara since her text about the internet bill. I had not commented on her Facebook post, which, according to Jessa, had now garnered over 100 likes and 40 comments praising Tara's resilience. I had gone dark, to the world. I was sulking. In reality, I was conducting a forensic audit of my own life. I picked up a statement from 2 years ago. May, transfer to T. Kelly, $300. Memo, electric bill help. Transfer to T. Kelly, $200. Memo, groceries. Transfer to T. Kelly, $800. Memo, mortgage gap. I uncapped the yellow highlighter. Yellow was for the mortgage. Blue was for utilities. Pink was for emergencies, the flat tires, the lost field trip money, the broken water heater. I highlighted the $800 in yellow. Then I picked up June, transfer to T. Kelly, $800. Memo, mortgage help. July, transfer to T. Kelly, $800. Memo, house. August, transfer to T. Kelly, $811.40. Memo, mortgage. I stopped. I stared at the number. $811.40. That wasn't a help number. When you help someone, you give them $500 or $100. You give them round, clean numbers to patch a hole. You don't transfer $811.40 unless you are paying a specific bill. I scrambled through the pile, looking for the next month. September, transfer to T. Kelly, $811.40. October, same number. November, same number. My hands started to shake. I highlighted them all in yellow. The pages were glowing with neon ink. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the conversations from 2 years ago. Tara had told me her mortgage payment was variable, that it jumped around, that she was always short different amounts. But this pattern wasn't variable, it was fixed. And it was exactly half of what a modest mortgage payment in Briar Glen would be for a house that size. I wasn't filling gaps. I was paying a set installment. I grabbed a calculator. I added up the yellow highlights for that year alone. The total staring back at me on the small gray screen was $9,736. That was just the mortgage. That didn't include the blue highlights for the electric, the water, the gas. It didn't include the pink highlights for the crises. I sat back against the cold wall, feeling a wave of nausea roll over me. I had been paying rent. I had been paying enough rent to have a lease, rights, and a key that wasn't borrowed. But because we called it helping, I had no equity, no credit history for it, and no standing. But the internet bill, that was the loose thread Tara had pulled that was going to unravel the whole sweater. The next morning, I took an early lunch break. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Larkridge Medical Billing, the engine idling to run the air conditioning against the humid midday heat. I dialed the number for the Briar Glen Utilities Cooperative. Briar Glen Utilities, this is Sarah speaking, a cheerful voice answered. Hi, Sarah, I said, keeping my voice steady. My name is Eva Kelly. I am calling regarding service at 402 Maple Drive. Okay, Eva, she said. I see the account here. Are you calling to pay the balance? No, I said. I am actually calling to remove my name from the account. I moved out this week. There was a clicking sound of a keyboard. Oh, I see. Well, we can certainly close the account, but that would shut off power to the residents. Since you are the primary account holder, we would need the new resident to call and set up service in their name. I gripped the steering wheel. I am the primary account holder? Yes, ma'am, Sarah said. Listed right here. And, is there anyone else on the account? A Tara Kelly? I see a Tara Kelly listed as an authorized user, which allows her to make inquiries. But the financial responsibility is under Eva Kelly. Sarah, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. When was this account opened? Let me check the history. Looks like July of 5 years ago. And how was it verified? Standard procedure, Sarah said, sounding bored now. Social Security number check and a soft credit pull. Okay, I said. Thank you. Please close the account effective immediately. Today. Are you sure? It usually takes 24 hours to get a technician out to read the meter. But we can do a remote disconnect. The lights will go out. I am sure, I said. Disconnect it. All right, it is done. A final bill will be mailed to the forwarding address on file. Is that still the Maple Drive address? No, I said. I gave her the address of my studio apartment. Send it there. I hung up. I sat in the silence of the car, watching a woman push a shopping cart across the asphalt. Tara hadn't just used my name because her credit was bad. She had used my social security number. She had impersonated me. 5 years ago, I was living in my own apartment. I wasn't even living at the house yet when the account was opened. She must have had my social security card. Or maybe she just knew the number. We were sisters. We had grown up sharing a room. I had never hidden my purse from her. I felt a profound sense of violation. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the casualness of it. She had worn my identity like a borrowed sweater and never returned it. I couldn't go back to work yet. I had one more stop to make. I drove to the Hearthstone Community Bank on Main Street. It was a small brick building with a gold leaf sign, the kind of bank where the tellers gave lollipops to kids and knew everyone's grandmother. My mother, Marlene, had banked here for 40 years. When I was 16, she had opened a joint checking account with me so I could deposit my paycheck from the ice cream shop. I walked into the cool, hushed lobby. The smell of stale coffee and old carpet hit me. I approached a desk where a woman with graying hair sat behind a nameplate that read, Mrs. Gable, branch manager. "Can I help you, dear?" she asked. "Hi," I said. "I'm Eva Kelly. I had an account here years ago with my mother. Marlene Kelly. I just wanted to check if it was fully closed. I'm doing some financial housekeeping." Mrs. Gable smiled. "Let's take a look," she typed on her computer. "I remember your mother. Lovely woman. How is she?" "She is fine," I lied. "Here we are," Mrs. Gable said. "Yes, the joint checking account ending in 452 was closed. Oh my, it was closed 3 years ago." "Okay," I said. "So it is closed. Good. Wait a moment." Mrs. Gable squinted at the screen. "That is odd." "What is odd?" "Well, usually when an account is closed, all the linked transfers are terminated. But it looks like there was a lingering recurring transfer authorization that was pushed to a different account number before the closure." "What does that mean?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. "It means," Mrs. Gable said, turning the screen slightly away from me as if to protect a secret, "that an automatic transfer of $50 a month was set up to go from this account to a loan account when the checking account was closed. The funding source for the transfer was switched to, let me see, it looks like another account under the name Tara Kelly. So the transfer stopped?" "No," Mrs. Gable said. "The transfer history shows it came from the joint account for 2 years before the switch. Did you authorize a loan payment?" "No," I said. "What kind of loan?" "A personal consolidation loan," Mrs. Gable said. "In the name of Marlene Kelly." I stared at her. "Thank you, Mrs. Gable. That is all I needed." I walked out of the bank into the blinding sunlight. My mother had a loan, and for 2 years. Money from our joint account. Money that I had put in there when I was younger. Money I thought was just sitting there or used for Mom's bingo nights, had been siphoning off to pay for it. And then Tara took over the payments. They were moving money around like shells in a game. And I was the mark. I needed to see my mother. I drove to her small ranch house on the other side of town. It was a modest place, cluttered with ceramic figurines and doilies. My mother, Marlene, was a woman who avoided conflict the way a cat avoids water. She lived in a world of soft edges and denial. I let myself in with my key. "Mom?" "In the kitchen. Honey?" she called out. I walked into the kitchen. She was making tea, her hands fluttering over the kettle. When she saw my face, her smile faltered. "Eva," she said, "you look intense. Is everything okay? Tara said you were settling in nicely." "Tara is a liar." "Mom," I said. I didn't yell. I didn't have the energy to yell. Marlene flinched. "Oh, Eva, don't be like that. You know how she is. She gets excited." "I just came from Hearthstone Bank," I said. Marlene went still. The kettle started to whistle, a low, rising shriek. She didn't move to turn it off. I know about the loan, Mom, and I know about the joint account. She turned off the stove. The silence that followed was heavy. She turned to face me, her eyes watery and wide. It was a hard season, she whispered. The phrase was like a shield she held up to deflect reality. Tara was desperate. Mark had just left. She had nowhere to turn. So you let her use my money? I asked. Money I earned? It wasn't that much, Eva, she pleaded, wringing her hands in her apron. And she was going to pay it back. She is paying it back. She took over the payments. But you let her take it from me first, I said. Without asking, you let her dip into my name, my history. You are the strong one, Marlene said, and a tear leaked out of her eye. You have always been the strong one, Eva. You have a job. You have savings. Tara is fragile. She needs help. I am not a bank, I said, and I am not a spare part you can harvest when Tara needs something. It was just paperwork, Marlene cried out, her voice cracking. It was just paperwork to get through the winter. Why do you have to make it so big? Why do you have to ruin everything? I didn't ruin anything, I said. I moved out. That is all I did. I moved out, and she called me a freeloader in front of the whole town. She was hurt, Marlene defended her. She felt abandoned. I looked at my mother, really looked at her. I saw the fear in her eyes. It wasn't fear for me. It was fear of Tara. Tara was the volatile one, the one who held her love hostage. If Marlene didn't side with Tara, Tara would cut her off from the grandkids. I was the safe one. I was the one who would always come back. No matter how much they took, or at least I had been. I am leaving now, I said. If there is anything else in my name, Mom, anything at all, you need to tell me. Marlene wiped her eyes. There is nothing. Just leave it alone. Eva, please, for the family. The family, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, with a click that sounded like the locking of a vault. 2 days later, I was sitting in a beige armchair in Dr. Simone Hart's office. The room smelled of lavender and expensive leather. Dr. Hart was a woman with kind eyes and a spine of steel. She had been seeing me for 6 months, mostly helping me navigate work stress, which we both knew was code for family enmeshment. So, Doctor, Hart said, leaning forward slightly, you moved out. I did, I said. And then I found out I have been paying the mortgage for 2 years, and the utilities were in my name without my consent, and my mother thinks I am the villain for asking questions. I recounted the week's events, the Facebook post, the audit, the call to the utility company, the scene with my mother, Doctor. Hart listened without interrupting. She nodded slowly when I described the conversation with Marlene. She called me the strong one, I said, staring at a painting of a storm-tossed ship on the wall. She said Tara is fragile. That is a powerful narrative, Doctor, Hart said softly. In family systems theory, we often see roles assigned to children very early on. Tara is the identified patient, the one who needs care, the one whose chaos organizes the family. And you? I am the freeloader, I said bitterly. No. Doctor, Hart corrected me. That is Tara's projection. To your mother, and to the system, you are the functionary. The what? The functionary. You are essential because you make the machine run. You provide the money, the stability, the emotional regulation, but you are also disposable. Disposable, I whispered. Yes. Doctor, Hart said, because your needs are not part of the equation. You are useful for what you provide, but shameful for what you represent. You represent the reality that Tara can't handle. You represent the competence that highlights their incompetence. So they use you, and then they have to devalue you to make themselves feel better about the using. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Essential and disposable, like a battery. Exactly. Doctor, Hart said. You are a battery, and they are angry because you unplugged yourself. I don't want to be a battery, I said. Then you have to stop conducting their current. Doctor, Hart said. You have started with the move. Now you are doing the audit. That is good. But be prepared, Eva. When the appliance is unplugged, it doesn't just sit there. It tries to find a new power source, or it shorts out. Tara is going to escalate. She already has, I said. She told everyone I was a leech. That is just the beginning. Doctor, Hart warned, protect yourself, not just emotionally, legally. I left the session feeling raw, but clearer. The fog of guilt was lifting. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't mean. I was escaping a system that had been designed to consume me. That evening, I went to Jessa's apartment. Jessa Rowan had been my best friend since college. She was a paralegal with a sharp bob haircut and zero tolerance for nonsense. I sat at her kitchen island while she poured 2 large glasses of red wine. So, Jessa said, sliding a glass toward me. She used your social for the lights? Yep, I said. And God knows what else. Eva, Jessa said, her voice serious. You know what you have to do. I know, I said. I need to talk to her. No, Jessa slammed her hand on the counter. Absolutely not. You do not talk to her. She will gaslight you until you are apologizing for existing. You need to pull your credit report. I shrank back. I don't want to know. You have to know, Jessa said. If she opened a utility account, she could have opened credit cards. She could have taken out loans. You need to look at the 3 bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I am scared, I admitted. If I look, and I find something, then it is real. Then it is a crime. Then I have to do something about it. It is already a crime, Eva, Jessa said gently. Ignorance doesn't protect you. It just gives her more time to dig the hole deeper. She opened her laptop and spun it around to face me. Log in. Annual credit report. It is free. My fingers felt numb as I typed in my information. Name, address, social security number, date of birth. The wheel on the screen spun. Verifying identity. Please answer the following security question. Which of the following auto loans is associated with your history? A. Ford Motor Credit, Honda Financial, C. Toyota Financial. None of the above, I clicked. None of the above. Question 2. You opened a home improvement line of credit with which of the following providers in 2023? A. Lowe's. B. Home Depot. C. Menards. D. None of the above. I paused. My finger hovered over the mouse. Home improvement. I remembered last summer. Tara had gotten a new deck built, a beautiful composite wood deck with built-in lighting. She had told me she paid for it with a bonus from a freelance job she had landed. I had been so proud of her. We had drunk lemonade on that deck. I clicked none of the above. Question 3. Verify the monthly payment amount for your mortgage with Hearthstone Lending. I clicked none of the above. The screen flashed. Report generated. I scrolled past the student loans I had paid off. I scrolled past my modest car loan. I scrolled past my one credit card, and there it was. Account name: Synchrony Bank / Lowe's. Status: open/current. Date opened: August 14th, 2023. Balance: $4,250. I stopped breathing. I had never applied for a Lowe's card. I had never spent $4,000 at a hardware store. What is it? Jessa asked. Seeing my face, I pointed at the screen. Lowe's, $4,000. Jessa leaned in. August 2023. Was that the deck? Yes, I whispered. That was the deck. She financed her deck in your name, Jessa said, her voice full of awe and horror. She invited you to sit on a deck that you unknowingly paid for, and she bragged about her bonus. There is an inquiry too, I said, pointing lower on the page. Look, last month, Inquiry. Wayfair credit. She tried to open another one right before I moved out, I said. Probably for furniture. It was denied. Eva, Jessa said, this is identity theft. This is grand larceny. $4,000 is a felony in this state. I stared at the screen. The numbers blurred. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, that I went numb. There was no room for anger anymore. Anger was hot. This was cold. This was the temperature of deep space. She had stolen my name. She had stolen my credit. She had looked me in the eye and lied. Day after day, year after year, and then she had called me a freeloader. Because if I was the freeloader, no one would suspect that I was actually the financier. It was the perfect cover. Who checks the credit report of the leech sleeping in the guest room? What are you going to do? Jessa asked softly. I closed the laptop. I took a sip of the wine. It tasted metallic. I am not going to explode, I said. My voice was steady, terrifyingly calm. I am not going to call her. I am not going to text her. Good, Jessa said. I am going to print this, I said. I am going to print the utility records. I am going to print the bank transfers. I stood up. Jessa, do you still have the number for that attorney you used for your cousin's contract dispute? Nadine Cross? Nadine? Jessa's eyes widened. Nadine is a shark. She deals with consumer fraud. Good, I said. I need a shark. You are going to sue her? I am going to correct the record, I said. This isn't about Facebook anymore. This is about my life. I walked to the printer in Jessa's home office. I hit print. The rhythmic clack of the printer started. It was the sound of war drums. I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar. I navigated to Monday morning. Appointment. Nadine Cross. Escaux. I typed it in. I was done being the sister. I was done being the daughter. I was the plaintiff. The law office of Nadine Cross was nothing like the polished, mahogany-paneled firms you saw on television. It was located in a strip mall between a chiropractor and a dry cleaner, with vertical blinds that had slightly yellowed from the sun. But when I walked in, the air was cool and smelled of mint tea, and the woman behind the desk looked like she could dismantle a tank with a ballpoint pen. Nadine Cross was small, sharp-featured, and wore a blazer that looked tailored to within an inch of its life. She didn't offer me coffee. She gestured to the chair opposite her desk and opened a legal pad. Start from the beginning, she said. Do not leave out the parts that make you feel stupid. Those are usually the most important parts. I told her everything, the 5 years of helping out, the text messages asking for mortgage coverage, the discovery of the utility account in my name, and finally, the Lowe's credit card on my report with the $4,000 balance. Nadine listened without blinking. She didn't gasp. She didn't shake her head in pity. She just wrote, her pen scratching across the yellow paper in quick, jagged bursts. When I finished, silence hung in the room for a long moment. Nadine capped her pen. Here is the reality. Eva, she said, her voice dry and precise. There are 2 buckets here. Bucket A is what we call informal family support. That is the grocery money. The cash transfers for the electric bill, the times you paid for pizza. The law doesn't care about that. If you gave it freely, it is a gift. You are never seeing that money again. I nodded. I expected that. But bucket B, she continued, tapping the pad, is unauthorized credit and contract activity. Opening a utility account in your name without your consent? That is fraud. Opening a line of credit at a hardware store using your social security number? That is identity theft. It doesn't matter that she is your sister. It doesn't matter that she used the lumber to build a deck you sat on. If you didn't sign the application, it is a crime. She leaned forward. The question is not whether she did it. The evidence suggests she did. The question is what you have the stomach to do about it. I looked at my hands. They were clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles were white. I don't want to put her in jail, I whispered. She has kids. My nieces. Nadine nodded. I hear that a lot. But you need to understand that this isn't a binary choice between do nothing and send her to prison. There are steps in between, but to take any of them, we need proof, real proof, not just a credit report line item. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a template letter. This is a request for documentation under the Fair Credit Billing Act and the Truth in Lending Act, she explained. You are going to send this to Synchrony Bank. That is the lender for the Lowe's card. You are going to demand a copy of the original credit application and the transaction history. If she forged your signature, that document will prove it. I took the paper. It felt heavy, like holding a weapon. Send it certified mail. Nadine said, return receipt requested. And Eva? Yes? Don't tell her you are doing it. If she knows you are digging, she will try to bury the shovel. I sent the letter the next morning. The postal clerk stamped the envelope with a satisfying thump, and I watched it disappear into the bin. It was done. The clock was ticking. 2 days later, my phone lit up with a notification. It was a Facebook event invite. Tara's Fresh Start Family Dinner. The graphic was bright pastel pink with cursive font. Come celebrate new beginnings and good vibes. No drama. Just love and lasagna. I stared at the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. Less than 2 weeks ago, she had publicly branded me a freeloader. Now, she was hosting a no-drama dinner? I scrolled down. She had invited everyone. Aunt Linda, my mother, cousins I hadn't seen since Christmas, and me. I knew exactly what this was. It was a trap. If I didn't go, I was the bitter one holding a grudge. If I went and acted cold, I was the mood killer. If I went and pretended everything was fine, I was validating her narrative that nothing was wrong. I called Jessa. Don't go, Jessa said immediately. She is trying to love bomb you back into submission. I have to go, I said, pacing my small apartment. If I don't go, she controls the story. She tells them I'm unstable, or jealous, or ungrateful. I need to see her face. I need to see if she knows what I know. You are playing with fire. Jessa warned. I am not playing. I said, I am observing. I wore my best outfit to the dinner. A tailored navy jumpsuit that made me feel professional and armored. I drove to the house, the familiar route making my stomach clench. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw the new deck, the $4,000 deck. It was stained a rich mahogany color. String lights were draped over the railing. It looked beautiful. It looked expensive. I walked up the steps, my heels clicking on the wood I had unknowingly paid for. Tara opened the door before I could knock. She was wearing a floral apron and holding a glass of wine. Her smile was bright, wide, and didn't reach her eyes. Eva! She cried, pulling me into a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and garlic. I am so glad you came. I was worried you were still, processing, I repeated, stepping out of her embrace. That is one word for it. Come in. Come in. She ushered me into the living room. Everyone is here. The house was warm and loud. My mother was on the sofa, looking anxious. Aunt Linda was inspecting a new vase on the mantel. My nieces, barely 10 and 8, ran past me with a shriek of laughter. Aunt Eva, the younger one yelled, slamming into my legs. I hugged her tight. This was the hard part. These kids were innocent. They didn't know their mother was building their life on a foundation of stolen credit. I navigated the room like a ghost. I accepted a glass of water. I smiled when Aunt Linda told me I looked rested. I listened. Tara was in her element. She moved from group to group, refilling drinks, laughing loudly. She was performing success. It is just so nice to finally have the house settled. I heard her say to Cousin Mike, "You know how hard the last few years were, but I feel like I finally have my peace. The energy in the house is just lighter." She glanced at me when she said it, a tiny micro-expression of triumph. Lighter because the heavy burden, me, was gone. I didn't bite. I sipped my water and watched her. Dinner was lasagna, served on the new dining set I recognized from the Wayfair browsing history I had seen on the shared computer months ago. Tara held court at the head of the table. "We are all thriving now," she announced, raising her glass. "Eva has her cute little apartment. I have the house back in order. The girls are doing great in soccer. It is just blessings, all blessings. My mother looked down at her plate. She knew. She knew about the loan payments. She knew about the utility bill. But she said nothing. She cut her lasagna into tiny, microscopic pieces. After dessert, Tara clapped her hands. "Oh, Eva, I almost forgot," she chirped. "I have something for you." The room went quiet. Tara walked to the sideboard and picked up a decorative envelope. It was thick, cream-colored paper with a gold foil lining. She walked over to me and placed it in my hands with a flourish. "What is this?" I asked. "Your final receipts," she said, winking at the table. "Since you were so worried about the internet bill and everything, I found a bunch of scraps in your old room. Thought you would want them for your records." The table chuckled. "Oh, Eva and her records. Classic Eva." I opened the envelope. My heart was pounding. Was this it? Was this a confession? A reimbursement check? I pulled out the papers. They were literal trash. A receipt from a gas station for a pack of gum from 3 years ago. A torn corner of a grocery list with the words, milk, eggs, sadness written in Tara's handwriting, a post-it note with a smiley face and the words, "You owe me a smile." I stared at the contents. It wasn't documentation. It was a mockery. It was her way of saying, "You want receipts? Here is garbage. Because that is what your help was worth to me. And look, I can hand it to you in front of everyone and make it look like a favor." I looked up at her. Her eyes were glittering with malice, masked by a wide, innocent smile. "Just wanted to make sure you had everything," she said. I slowly put the papers back in the envelope. I didn't crumble. I didn't throw it at her. I placed it gently in my purse. "Thank you, Tara," I said. My voice was level. "I will file this appropriately." The smile faltered on her face for a split second. She expected me to get flustered. She expected me to snap so she could look like the victim again. Look at Eva, overreacting to a joke. I stood up. "I think I'm going to head out," I said. "Early morning tomorrow." As I walked to the door, my mother intercepted me in the hallway. She looked terrified. She grabbed my hand and pressed something cold and metal into my palm. I looked down. It was a spare key to the house. "Mom?" I whispered. "Just take it," she hissed, her voice trembling. In case you need to get in when she isn't here. Just, please, Ava, please don't make this worse. She is happy right now. If you pop the bubble, she will destroy you. She is already trying." "Mom," I said. I realized then, looking at my mother's shaking hands, that her loyalty wasn't love, it was hostage negotiation. She was managing the terrorists to keep the rest of us safe, but I wasn't a hostage anymore. I drove home in silence. The envelope in my purse felt radioactive. 1 week later, a large manila envelope arrived in my mailbox. The return address was Synchrony Bank/Fraud Department. I carried it upstairs. I sat at my small kitchen table. I used a kitchen knife to slice it open. Inside was a stack of photocopied documents. Exhibit A, credit application. I pulled it out. It was a standard form, filled out in blue ink. Name, Eva Marie Kelly. SSN, my number D. OB, my date of birth. Address, 402 Maple Drive. Annual income, $85,000. I blinked. I didn't make $85,000. I made 52. And the email address, email, tkelly88yahoo.com. It was Tara's old email address from high school, the one she used for spam and sweepstakes. I turned the page. Signature. At the bottom of the page, on the line marked applicant signature, was a scrawl. It read, Eva Kelly, but it wasn't my signature. My signature is tight, compact, with a sharp loop on the E. This signature was large, loopy, and shaky. It looked like someone trying to copy a signature they had seen once on a birthday card. I stared at it. There it was, the smoking gun. She had stood at a counter in Lowe's, or sat at her computer, and physically signed my name. She had committed a felony. She had looked at the terms. I certify that I am the person named above. And she had lied. I felt a strange, crushing sensation in my chest. I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought I would feel vindicated. Instead, I felt grief. I put my head in my hands and I cried. I cried for the sister I thought I had. I cried for the trust I had given so freely. I cried because, in that shaky signature, I saw the desperation and the entitlement mixed together in a toxic sludge. She thought she had the right. She thought I owed her this. She thought my credit score was just another resource in the house, like the milk in the fridge or the towels in the closet. I cried until my throat hurt. Then I wiped my face, drank a glass of water, and called Nadine. "I have it," I said. "The application?" Nadine asked. "Yes." She used her email, and the signature is a forgery. "Okay," Nadine said. Her voice shifted. It became the voice of a general entering the war room. "Now we have a decision to make. To dispute this debt, to get this $4,000 off your credit report and absolve you of liability, you have to file an identity theft report." "I know," I said, "and usually," Nadine continued, "the bank will require a police report to process the fraud claim. They need an official record that a crime was committed." "A police report," I repeated. "Yes, if you file a police report, it creates a public record. It doesn't mean they will arrest her tomorrow. Identity theft cases are low priority for local PD unless it is massive, but it starts a file, and if the bank chooses to pursue her for the money once they realize it wasn't you, they will use that report." I hesitated, calling the police on my sister. It felt like crossing a line you could never uncross. It felt like nuclear war. But then I looked at the application again. Annual income, $85,000. She had lied about my income to get more credit. She had inflated my worth to steal more from me. If I don't do it, I asked, I am on the hook for the $4,000? "Yes," Nadine said. "You can pay it off and close the account, but you are validating the debt, and you are teaching her that she can do it again, because if you pay it, you are effectively saying, 'Yes, I authorize this.'" I thought about the final receipts envelope, the gum wrapper, the mockery. "She isn't going to stop, Nadine." I said, "No." Nadine said, "She isn't. I will go to the station tomorrow." I said, I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory of Tara, the way she braided my hair when we were kids, the way she defended me from a bully in 3rd grade. Where had that person gone? Or had she always been this way? And I just hadn't had anything she wanted yet. The next morning, I walked into the Briar Glen police station. It smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. I asked to file a report for identity theft. The officer, a young guy who looked like he would rather be anywhere else, handed me a clipboard. "Just fill out the details," he said. "Do you know who the suspect is?" I hovered the pen over the line. "Suspect name." I wrote, "Tara Kelly." My hand didn't shake. I filled out the rest. I attached a copy of the forged application. I attached the credit report page. "Okay," the officer said, taking the clipboard back. "We will generate a case number. You need this for the bank?" "Yes," I said. "All right. Here is your incident slip. Case number 24-0098. A detective might call you if they need more info, but usually, this just goes to the fraud unit." I took the slip. It was a small piece of thermal paper. It was the only thing standing between me and financial ruin. I walked out of the station. I felt lighter. I hadn't posted it on Facebook. I hadn't screamed at her in the street. I had just told the truth to the people whose job it was to record the truth. I called Nadine from the car. "It is done," I said. "Case number 24-0098. "Good," Nadine said. "Scan that in the application. I will draft the dispute letter to Synchrony. We are going to get that debt off your name." She paused. "Eva, there is one more thing." "What?" "I ran a title search on the house." Nadine said, "Just to be thorough, since you were paying the mortgage. I wanted to see the status of the property, and there is a problem." She said, "Tara has been missing property tax payments. There is a tax lien warning on the title." What does that mean? It means, Nadine said, if she doesn't pay the back taxes within 6 months, the county can auction the house. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I gave her money for taxes. I said, last year, she asked for $1,200 for the tax bill. I transferred it. I highlighted it on my statement. Nadine sighed, a long, heavy sigh. She didn't pay the taxes. Eva, she likely used that money for something else. I closed my eyes. The deception wasn't just malicious. It was negligent. She was letting the house my nieces lived in, teeter on the edge of foreclosure while she built a deck and threw parties. And here is the kicker, Nadine added. The mortgage? The one you were helping with? It is an interest-only ARM. She hasn't paid a dime of principal in 5 years. She is just treading water. If rates go up, the payment will double, and she will drown. I realized then the full scope of the tragedy. I hadn't been propping up a struggling homeowner. I had been bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon while the captain drilled holes in the hull. Eva? Nadine asked. Are you there? I am here, I said. This changes the strategy. Nadine said, you aren't just fighting for your credit anymore. You are the only person who knows the house is about to collapse. I looked at the police station in the rearview mirror. I can't save her. Nadine, I said, I tried to save her for 5 years, and she stole my identity. I can't save the house. No, Nadine said. You can't, but you can make sure you aren't chained to the wreckage when it goes down. I put the car in drive. Send the letter. Nadine, I said, dispute the debt. I am cutting the chain. I drove away. The town of Briar Glen looked the same as it always did. Manicured lawns, white picket fences, but now I saw the rot underneath. I saw the liens, the debts, the secrets hidden behind the front doors. Tara had wanted a fresh start. She had wanted peace. She was about to get a war, and the devastating part was, she had armed her enemy herself. I threw myself into work. It was the only thing I could control. At Larkridge Medical Billing, the days were measured in claim numbers and denial codes. A clean, binary world where things either balanced or they didn't. I volunteered for every overtime shift available. I stayed late. The hum of the server room, my only companion, processing batches of oncology claims until my eyes blurred. It wasn't just about the money. Though I needed every cent to rebuild the savings Tara had drained, it was about dignity. Every paycheck that went into my solitary account, my account, the one no one else could access, felt like a brick in a new wall I was building around myself. I enrolled in a certified professional coder course online. Tuesday and Thursday nights, instead of sitting in my empty apartment stewing over injustice, I learned about anatomy, physiology, and the intricate logic of medical necessity. I was reclaiming my brain. For years, my mental energy had been consumed by the Kelly family crisis management system. How do we pay for the field trip? How do we fix the car? How do we calm Mom down? Now, I was using that energy for me. But while I was building, Tara was broadcasting. Jessa sent me the screenshot on a Wednesday afternoon. I had told her to stop, but she insisted I needed to know the temperature of the water. The post was a text graphic, white font on a stormy gray background. Sometimes you have to cut off the dead weight to let the balloon fly. Toxic people will always try to anchor you to their misery. Choosing peace means choosing to walk away from those who only take. Growth boundaries new. Chapter. It was a masterclass in projection. She was the one who had taken. She was the one who had anchored me. But to the casual observer in Briar Glen, it read as a triumphant survivor story. The comments were nauseating. So proud of you. Babe, you look lighter already. Toxic family is the worst. Keep shining. You are such a strong mama. Don't let anyone dim your light. I closed the image. I didn't feel the sharp stab of humiliation anymore. I felt a cold, dull resolve. She was doubling down. She was fortifying her castle with sympathy bricks. That evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, assuming it was a telemarketer, but something made me answer. Hello? Eva, this is Glenn Mercer. From down the street. I sat up straighter. Glenn was a retired carpenter who lived 3 houses down from Tara. He was a quiet man who spent his days working on a vintage Mustang in his driveway. Hi, Glenn, I said. Is everything okay? Well, he hesitated, his voice gravelly and uncomfortable. I wasn't sure if I should call, but I saw you moved out, and then I saw the work getting done on the roof last month. The roof? I asked. Yeah, we got that fixed last year. Wait, did she get it fixed again? That is just it, Glenn said. You remember you asked me to take a look at it before you hired someone, and I told you it needed a full tear-off? Yes, I remember. And we hired that company, Pine Hollow Renovations. They did it for $8,000. I remembered the number perfectly because I had transferred $4,000 to Tara for the deposit. Eva, Glenn said, I was walking my dog yesterday and I saw a shingle loose. I looked closer. They never did a tear-off. They just nailed a second layer of cheap architectural shingles over the old rotting ones. And the flashing around the chimney? It is duct tape painted black. What? And that ain't the worst of it, Glenn continued. I got curious. So I asked around. Pine Hollow Renovations? No one has heard of them. I looked up their contractor license number from the permit sign in the yard. It doesn't exist. My hand tightened on the phone. So who did the work? 2 guys in a rusted pickup truck, Glenn said. I saw them up there. No safety harness, no branded shirts. They were up and down in a day. That wasn't an $8,000 job. Eva, that was a $1,500 patch job. If that. Thank you, Glenn, I said, my voice hollow. Thank you for telling me. I know you worked hard for that money, Glenn said gently. I didn't want you thinking you got what you paid for. I hung up. I went to my laptop and opened the folder, the digital one now, where I was scanning everything. I pulled up the invoice. Tara had texted me a photo of last year. Pine Hollow Renovations, invoice 1001, roof replacement, $8,000. I Googled the company name. Nothing. No website. No reviews. I went to the Secretary of State's business search. Pine Hollow Renovations, LLC, registered agent, Miles Rourke. Date of formation, 2 weeks before the invoice date. Miles Rourke. Tara's new boyfriend. The one in finance. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. It was a kickback scheme. They had created a shell company, billed me for a legitimate repair, hired cheap, unlicensed labor to do a cosmetic fix, and pocketed the difference. $6,000. They had stolen $6,000 from me on a single job. I called Nadine immediately. This is bad, Nadine said, her voice sharp over the speakerphone. And not just because of the theft. If that roof leaks, and it will, the insurance company won't cover it because it was done by unlicensed contractors. And if there is mold, structural damage? It is her house, I said. Her problem. Ava, Nadine said, if the financing for that repair was run through any account with your name on it, or if the insurance policy lists you, you could be liable for the remediation, or worse, if the bank finds out the collateral, the house, is being devalued by unpermitted work. They can call the loan. The loan, I whispered. The mortgage. We need to check the county records, Nadine said. I did a title search, but I didn't pull the deep instrument filings. Go to the Bryan County Recorder of Deeds office. Tomorrow, pull everything filed against that property in the last 5 years. The next morning, I stood in the basement of the county courthouse. The air smelled of dust and old paper. The clerk, a woman named Barb with bifocals on a chain, pointed me to a computer terminal. Search by parcel number or name, she said. I typed in Tara Kelly, the list populated, deed of trust, release of lien, mechanics lien, dismissed, and then, at the top of the list, a filing from 10 months ago, Home Equity Line of Credit, HELOC, lender, Hearthstone Community Bank, amount, $25,000. I clicked on the document image. It was a standard HELOC agreement. The borrowers were listed as Tara Kelly and Eva Kelly. My breath hitched. I scrolled to the signature page. There it was again, that loopy, shaky Eva Kelly, but right next to it was a notary stamp. Sworn and subscribed before me this 14th day of March. A notary had stamped this. A notary had verified that I was standing there, signing this document. I looked at the date. March 14th. On March 14th, I was at a medical billing conference in Chicago. I had the plane ticket receipt. I had the hotel folio. I was 300 miles away when this document was signed. Tara had forged my signature, and she had gotten a notary, probably a friend, or maybe Miles knew someone, to falsify the witness attestation. $25,000. I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. This wasn't just a credit card at Lowe's. This was a mortgage product. This was a lien on the property. If she defaulted on this, the bank would come for me. They would garnish my wages. They would ruin the life I was trying to build. And suddenly, the Facebook post made sense. Sometimes you have to cut off the dead weight. She wasn't just being mean. She was preempting the explosion. She knew I would find out eventually. She was building a narrative where I was the crazy, vindictive sister, so that when I finally came forward with the truth, everyone would think I was just lashing out because she cut me off. It was strategic. It was evil. I printed the document. The page was warm in my hand. I walked out of the courthouse and into the blinding sun. I didn't go to my car. I walked 2 blocks to a park bench and sat down. I needed to stop shaking. I had to talk to her. Nadine had said not to. Jessa had said not to. But they were thinking legally. I was thinking like a human being who had been betrayed by the person she shared a womb with. I needed to see her face when I laid the papers on the table. I needed to know why. I drove to the house. It was midday. Tara would be home. She worked from home doing social media consulting, which mostly meant scrolling Instagram. I pulled into the driveway. The new deck gleamed in the sun. The roof looked normal from the ground. It was all a facade. I unlocked the front door with the key my mother had given me. "Tara?" I called out. She appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt. She looked annoyed. "Ava? What are you doing here? You can't just walk in anymore." "I have a key," I said, holding it up. "Mom gave it to me." She narrowed her eyes. "Well, give it back. I am changing the locks anyway." "We need to talk," I said. "Down here," she sighed. A dramatic, suffering sound. "I don't have time for a lecture. Eva, I am working." "It isn't a lecture," I said. "It is a list." She came down the stairs slowly, her arms crossed. She stopped on the bottom step, looking down at me. "Make it quick." I pulled the folder from my bag. I didn't yell. I kept my voice low, steady, almost monotone. "Question 1, I said. "Who is Pine Hollow Renovations? And why is the registered agent your boyfriend Miles?" Tara's face went blank. "I don't know what you are talking about. It was a referral." "Question 2, I continued. "Why did you charge me $4,000 for a deposit on an $8,000 roof that was actually a $1,500 patch job done by unlicensed labor?" "You are delusional," she spat. "That roof is brand new." "Question 3, I said, pulling out the HELOC document. "How did I sign this home equity line of credit on March 14th when I was in Chicago?" Tara froze. Her eyes flicked to the paper, then back to my face. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving 2 spots of artificial rouge. She started. Then she stopped. Then she laughed. It was a shrill, terrifying sound. "You are obsessed with me," she said, shaking her head. "You are literally obsessed. You move out, and instead of getting a life, you spend your time digging through county records? That is sad. Ava, that is really sad." "It is a forgery." "Tara," I said. "It is $25,000 of debt in my name that I didn't authorize. It is our house." She screamed suddenly, her face twisting into a snarl. "I did it for the house. I needed the money to pay off the credit card so we could eat. You were so stingy with your transfers, acting like a martyr every time I asked for grocery money. I had to do what I had to do." "Stingy?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "I gave you half my paycheck for 5 years. You lived here rent-free," she yelled. "I paid the mortgage," I yelled back, finally breaking. "I paid the mortgage you pretended you were paying." She started to cry. Instant, racking sobs. She collapsed onto the bottom step, burying her face in her hands. "I was drowning. Ava, Mark left me with nothing. I was just trying to keep the girls safe. Why do you hate me? Why do you want to destroy your own family?" It was a performance. I watched it, detached. I saw the cycling. First the mockery, then the rage, now the victimhood. It was a mechanism designed to keep me off balance. If I comforted her, she won. If I yelled at her, she won. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I am not going to pay for this." She looked up, her eyes wet but hard. The tears stopped as if she had turned off a faucet. "If you go after me," she whispered, her voice low and venomous, "everyone will know what you were really like living here." "What does that mean?" "I have stories. Ava," she said. "I have witnesses. I have told people things about how you drank, about how you yelled at the girls, about how unstable you were." "I never yelled at the girls," I said, shocked. "I never drank. It doesn't matter what is true." She smiled, a cold, thin smile. "It matters what people believe, and people love a tragic single mom fighting off a jealous, childless sister. You saw the Facebook comments. They are already on my side." I stared at her. I realized she had been preparing for this for a long time. She had been planting seeds of doubt in the community, watering them with little lies, so that when I finally stood up, I would have no ground to stand on. "You are right," I said. "Stories are powerful." I put the papers back in my folder. "But facts are stubborn," I said. "And a notary logbook is a fact. A flight receipt is a fact. A shell company registration is a fact." "Go ahead," she sneered. "Sue your sister. See how that looks?" "I am not suing my sister," I said, turning to the door. "I am disputing a fraud." I walked out. I didn't look back. I drove straight to Nadine's office. I didn't even call for an appointment. I walked in, dropped the folder on her desk, and sat down. "She threatened me," I said. "She said she would smear me. She said she has witnesses to things I never did." Nadine picked up the HELOC document. She looked at the signature. She looked at the notary stamp. "Let her talk," Nadine said calmly. "Let her post on Facebook. Let her tell the whole town you are the devil." "Why?" "Because while she is telling stories," Nadine said, tapping the document, "we are gathering exhibits. Judges don't care about Facebook likes. Eva, they care about notarized forgeries. This notary? We are going to subpoena his logbook. If he didn't log your ID check, and he couldn't have, because you weren't there, he loses his license, and he will flip on her to save himself." "She said she did it for the girls," I said, my voice quiet. "She said I was stingy." "Thieves always rationalize the theft," Nadine said. "It is how they sleep at night, but we are done with the emotional audit. We are moving to the legal one." She pulled out a calendar. "We are going to send a demand letter," Nadine said. "It is the first step. We will offer a civil resolution. We will demand she refinance the HELOC to remove your name within 30 days. We will demand she pay off the Lowe's card. And we will demand a written acknowledgement that the debts are hers." "She won't do it," I said. "She doesn't have the credit to refinance, and she doesn't have the money to pay off the card." "I know," Nadine said. "But we have to offer it. It shows the court we tried to be reasonable. When she refuses, or when she ignores it, then we file the suit. Quiet title action, fraud, unjust enrichment. It will destroy her," I said. "She destroyed herself. Eva," Nadine said firmly. "She lit the match. You are just refusing to burn with her." I went home. I sat in my apartment. It was quiet. I looked at the folder, bank confirmations, lender packets, county records, police report. I thought about the final receipts envelope she had given me, the gum wrapper, the trash. She thought she was playing a game of social manipulation. She thought if she got enough likes, the truth would disappear. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I was building a timeline. I opened a new document on my computer. Timeline of events. January 2019. Eva Kelly moves into 402 Maple Drive. July 2019. Unauthorized utility account opened. March 14th, 2023. Forged HELOC application. August 2023. Forged Lowe's credit application. I typed for hours. I linked every entry to a PDF of a document. I built a fortress of facts. If she wanted to tell stories, fine, I would write the history book, and when the time came, I wouldn't need to raise my voice. I would just open the binder. The letter Nadine drafted was 3 pages long, printed on heavy bond paper with the firm's letterhead embossed at the top. It was a beautiful, terrifying object. It didn't scream. It didn't use exclamation points. It simply listed facts, dates, and statutes. Unauthorized use of identity and financial accounts / demand for cure. I sat in Nadine's office and read the bullet points. 1. Immediate cessation of all use of Eva Kelly's name, social security number, and personal information. 2. A full accounting of all funds accessed through the Hearthstone HELOC and the Synchrony / Lowe's credit account within 5 business days. 3. Immediate refinancing of the Hearthstone HELOC to remove Eva Kelly as a co-borrower, or the immediate sale of the property to satisfy the lien. 4. Immediate payment in full of the Synchrony / Lowe's balance to close the account. It is a lot, I said, tracing the edge of the paper. She can't do this. She doesn't have $25,000 for the HELOC or $4,000 for the card. She can't refinance. Her credit is ruined. That is not your problem, Nadine said, signing the bottom of the page with a sharp, fluid stroke. This letter serves 2 purposes. First, it gives her a chance to fix it, however unlikely that is. Second, it demonstrates to the court that we tried to resolve this civilly before we filed the quiet title action and the fraud suit. It paints you as the reasonable party. We sent it via courier. I wanted a signature. I wanted to know the exact minute she held it in her hands. The courier confirmation came at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Signed for by Tion Kelly. I sat at my desk at Larkridge Medical Billing. Staring at the timestamp, I couldn't focus on the claims queue. I was waiting for the explosion. I expected a screaming phone call. I expected her to drive to my office and cause a scene in the lobby. But nothing happened. The afternoon stretched on, silent and heavy. At 7 that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tara. I opened it, bracing myself. I got your lawyer's letter. She wrote, I am sorry you felt the need to take it there. I thought we were family. I am sorry you feel like I took advantage of you. I was just trying to survive. I stared at the words. I am sorry you felt. I am sorry you feel like. It was the non-apology of a narcissist. She wasn't sorry she stole my identity. She was sorry I had reacted to it. She was framing my legal defense as an emotional overreaction. I didn't reply. Nadine had been clear. Do not engage. 10 minutes later, Jessa texted me, Don't look at Facebook. I looked immediately. Tara had posted a status update. No photo this time. Just a block of text against a black background. It is sad when people weaponize therapists and lawyers to punish their family for not being perfect. We all make mistakes, but trying to destroy someone's life because you are bitter about the past is a new low. Praying for peace and protection from those who want to see me fail. The comments were already rolling in, but the tone had shifted. It wasn't just generic support anymore. It was aggressive. Lawyers? Seriously? Wrote a woman named Kaylee, one of Tara's mom friends I had met once at a birthday party. That is so litigious and unnecessary. People who sue family are dead inside. Keep your head up. Wrote another friend. Sarah. They use the legal system because they can't handle human relationships. It is a control tactic. Don't let them bully you, weaponize, litigious, control tactic. I frowned. These weren't words Tara's friends usually used. Tara's friends usually used emojis and phrases like, hang in there, mama. This language was specific. It sounded coached. It sounded like someone had given them a script, or at least a set of talking points. I clicked on the profile of the person who had liked every single negative comment, Miles Rourke. I had looked him up before, but only superficially. Now, I dug deeper. Tara had described him as being in finance. She said he was a consultant who helped businesses optimize their assets. I went to the state court record search. I typed in Miles Rourke. The screen filled with results. Judgment, small claims, Rourke versus landlord, dismissed. Judgment, civil, Rourke versus auto body shop, plaintiff. Denied. Judgment, civil, Credit One Bank versus Rourke, default. Judgment for plaintiff. Judgment, civil, Rourke versus previous partner, restraining order granted against Rourke. He wasn't in finance. He was a professional litigant. He was a man who spent his life in courtrooms, suing people for minor grievances and getting sued for not paying his bills. I clicked on the details of one of his lawsuits against a landlord. In the filing, he had used phrases like weaponization of the lease and bad faith tactics. He was writing Tara's posts. He was the one telling her that my demand letter was bullying. He was the one convincing her that she could outsmart paperwork because he thought he was smarter than the system. But the records showed he lost almost every case he filed. He wasn't a legal genius. He was a grifter who knew just enough legal jargon to sound dangerous to people who knew nothing. And he was advising my sister to ignore a formal demand letter from a consumer protection attorney. He was going to drive her off a cliff. The next day, my mother called. Ava, she said, her voice trembling. Please. Mom, I can't talk about this if you are going to ask me to drop it, I said, holding the phone against my ear as I walked to the break room. I am not asking you to drop it, she said. I want to fix it. You can't fix it. Mom, unless you have $30,000. I have $2,000, she said. I stopped walking. What? I have $2,000 in my emergency savings, she said. I can give it to you, and I can send you $200 a month for my pension. I can pay you back. Eva, please tell the lawyer to stop. Please don't take the house. My heart broke. Not for Tara, but for her. My mother was offering to bleed herself dry, to give up her tiny safety net, to pay for Tara's crimes. She was trying to pay a ransom. Mom, I said gently, why are you offering to pay? You didn't spend the money. Because I am the mother, she whispered. It is my job to keep the peace. No, I said. It is not your job to pay for a deck you didn't build. And it is not your job to pay off a fraud you didn't commit. But she is your sister, Marlene cried. If she loses the house, where will she go? Where will the girls go? She should have thought about that before she forged my signature, I said. Mom, listen to me. If I take your money, nothing changes. Tara learns that she can steal, and you will pay for it. She will do it again. She has already done it again. She has a lien on the house right now that you don't even know about. I can't handle this, Marlene sobbed. I can't handle the fighting. Then don't handle it, I said. Step out of the middle. This is between me and Tara. Keep your money. Mom, you are going to need it. I hung up. My hand was shaking. I realized then that my mother wasn't trying to protect me. She wasn't even really trying to protect Tara. She was trying to protect her own delusion that we were a normal, happy family. She was willing to pay $2,000 to keep the curtain closed, but the curtain was already on fire. The consequences of the fire started to singe me 2 days later. My lease at the studio was month to month, but the building was being sold, and the new owners were raising the rent. I had found a beautiful one-bedroom apartment closer to work. It had a balcony, it had a dishwasher, it had a door to the bedroom so I didn't have to sleep in my kitchen. I had applied on Monday. I was sure I would get it. I had a good job. I had a perfect rental history. I checked my email. There was a message from the property management company. Dear Ms. Kelly, thank you for your application for Unit 3B. Unfortunately, we are unable to approve your application at this time due to information found in your credit report. Specifically, your debt-to-income ratio exceeds our threshold of 40%, and there is a recent high utilization alert on your revolving credit. If you believe this is an error, you may contact the reporting bureau. I stared at the screen, denied. I pulled up my credit monitoring app. My score, which had been a pristine 750 a month ago, had dropped to 620. The Lowe's card was maxed out. That was $4,000 of utilization, and the HELOC, the $25,000 line of credit, it was showing as fully drawn. She had taken every cent, to the algorithm. I wasn't a responsible medical biller. I was a person drowning in $30,000 of new debt. I looked around my tiny studio. The walls felt like they were closing in. I was stuck here. I was trapped in this concrete box because my sister wanted a deck and a fresh start. I felt a cold, hard rage settle in my chest. This wasn't abstract anymore. This wasn't just numbers on a screen. This was where I lived. This was my ability to put a roof over my head. I printed the rejection email. I added it to the folder. Damages. I went to see Nadine. We need to dispute these now, I said. I can't wait for her to respond to the letter. I can't rent an apartment. Okay, Nadine said. We escalate. We file the direct disputes with the bureaus and the lenders. But they are going to push back. They have a signed contract. They have a notary stamp. We have to prove a negative. I have the police report, I said. That is good, Nadine said. But we need more. I want you to give me handwriting samples. Checks you signed 5 years ago. Your driver's license signature, leases, anything that predates the fraud. We need to show the variance. I spent the weekend digging through old boxes. I found my college diploma. I found birthday cards I had signed for my grandmother. I found old tax returns. My signature was consistent. Small, sharp, efficient. Tara's forgery was consistently sloppy. I scanned them all. I wrote an affidavit, swearing under penalty of perjury that I did not sign the documents. Nadine bundled it all into a packet thick enough to choke a horse. We sent it to Synchrony. We sent it to Hearthstone Bank. We sent it to Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Now we wait, Nadine said. They have 30 days to investigate. But I didn't have 30 days. On Friday, Dr. Evans called me into his office. Dr. Evans was a good man, but he was strictly business. He sat behind his glass desk, holding a file. Eva, he said, I have some good news. We are restructuring the billing department. We want to create a new role. Senior Revenue Cycle Manager. You are the best coder we have. I want to offer you the position. My heart leaped. This was it. The salary bump would be significant. It would mean I could rebuild my savings faster. It would mean validation. Thank you, Dr. Evans, I said. I would be honored. Great, he smiled. The salary is $85,000 a year, and it comes with full access to the hospital's master financial system. He slid a form across the desk. Standard procedure for anyone with master access, he said. Background check and a credit check. Since you will be handling high-value transfers and patient financial data, compliance requires us to ensure all managers are financially stable, no bankruptcies, no massive collections, no high-risk indicators. My blood ran cold. High-risk indicators. Like a sudden $30,000 debt load? Like a maxed-out credit card? Like a credit score that had plummeted 100 points in a month? I stared at the form. Consent for Consumer Credit Report. If I signed it, he would see the mess. He would see the chaos Tara had created. And in the world of medical billing, financial chaos looked like a liability. It looked like someone who might be tempted to embezzle. Is there a problem? Dr. Evans asked. Seeing my hesitation, I looked up at him. I had two choices. I could lie and hope it didn't look that bad, or I could tell the truth and risk looking like a drama-filled employee. Dr. Evans, I said, my voice steady but tight. I need to disclose something before I sign this. I am currently the victim of identity theft involving a family member. There are fraudulent accounts on my report that I'm actively disputing with the help of an attorney and the police. My score has taken a hit because of it. Doctor. Evans frowned. Identity theft? That is terrible. It is, I said. I can provide the police report case number and a letter from my attorney explaining the situation. But I wanted you to know that the report you pull will not reflect my actual financial behavior. It reflects a crime committed against me. He looked at me for a long moment. I appreciate the honesty. Eva, bring me the documentation. I will have to run it by HR and legal. They are pretty strict about the criteria. I understand, I said. I walked out of his office feeling like I was walking on a tightrope over a canyon. My promotion, my future, was hanging by a thread, and Tara was holding the scissors. I went back to my desk. I pulled up Facebook. I saw Tara's post again. Weaponize. Control. I looked at the comments from my cousins, from my aunts. They were liking her posts. They were heart-reacting to her lies. They thought I was the villain because I was the only one who knew the truth. And I was staying silent to protect the family. I was done protecting the family. The family wasn't protecting me. The family was watching me drown and applauding the person holding my head underwater. I opened my email. I didn't make a public post. I wasn't going to give Miles Rourke screenshots to use against me. I composed a message. I selected the recipients carefully. Aunt Linda, Cousin Mike, Uncle Bob, the elders, the opinion makers. Subject, personal update / the situation with Tara. Dear family, I am writing this to clarify some confusion regarding the recent tension between Tara and myself. I know there have been posts online suggesting that I am attacking Tara or weaponizing lawyers out of spite. I have stayed silent to avoid embarrassing anyone. But since this is now affecting my professional life and housing, I need to set the record straight. I am currently in a legal dispute regarding significant identity theft. Over the last 5 years, multiple financial accounts, including a $25,000 home equity line of credit and a credit card, were opened in my name without my consent or knowledge. My signature was forged on bank documents while I was out of town. These debts are now in my name, damaging my credit and threatening my employment. I have filed a police report, case 24-0098, and am working with counsel to correct the fraud. This is not a personal argument. This is a financial crime that I cannot afford to ignore. I love my sister, but I cannot set myself on fire to keep her warm anymore. I hope you can understand why I have had to take these steps. Love, Eva. I read it 3 times. It was factual. It was calm. It was devastating. I hit send. I sat back in my chair and watched the cursor blink. The silence that followed lasted for an hour. Then, the replies started. Aunt Linda was first. Eva. I am shocked. I had no idea it was this serious. Forgery? Are you sure? Tara said you agreed to help. I replied. I have the notary logs and the flight receipts. Aunt Linda, I was in Chicago when the papers were signed. Then Cousin Mike. Whoa, that is heavy. If that is true, that is messed up. Does Mom know? I replied. Mom knows. Then came the other side. My cousin Bethany, Tara's best friend in the family, replied with venom. This is disgusting. Eva, airing dirty laundry in an email? You are trying to turn the family against her. She is a single mother doing her best. Even if she used your name, she paid for the house you lived in. You are tearing this family apart over money. Tearing the family apart. There it was. The accusation I had feared for 5 years. But looking at it now, on the screen, it didn't hurt. It clarified. Bethany didn't care about the truth. She cared about the comfort of the narrative. She preferred a world where Tara was the victim and I was the helper. The truth, that Tara was a criminal and I was a victim, was too uncomfortable. It required her to pick a side, and she had picked. I created a new folder in my inbox. Family responses. I dragged Bethany's email into it. I didn't reply. I dragged Aunt Linda's email into a folder marked support. I was sorting them. I was seeing, for the first time, who actually loved me, and who loved the version of me that stayed silent and paid the bills. My phone buzzed. It was Dr. Evans. Ava. I spoke to HR. If you can provide the police report and the affidavit by Monday, we can proceed with the promotion process with a conditional approval pending the dispute resolution. We believe you. We believe you. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My boss believed me. The law believed me. I looked at the family emails again. The people who mattered, the people who valued integrity, were standing with me. The people who valued appearances were standing with Tara. The family fractured. I could hear the cracking sound as clearly as if a bone had snapped, but for the first time in 5 years, the pain wasn't coming from the weight I was carrying. It was the pain of setting a broken limb so it could finally heal straight. I packed my bag. I had a promotion to prepare for, and I had a war to win. The invitation arrived via email, text, and a boosted Facebook post. It was impossible to miss. Tara's New Beginnings. Gala. The graphic featured a photo of the house, my house, or at least the house my credit had bought. Glowing in the golden hour sunlight, the new deck was prominent. The caption was nauseatingly cheerful. After a year of storms, we are finally seeing the rainbow. Come celebrate peace, prosperity, and the power of moving on. No negativity allowed. It was taking place on a Saturday night. It was Tara's victory lap. She was framing her survival as a moral triumph, using the very house she was stealing from me as the stage. I wasn't planning to go. I had my folder, I had my police report. I was content to let the legal gears grind her down slowly from a distance, but then Nadine called me on Friday afternoon. "Ava, we have a problem," Nadine said. Her voice was tight, lacking its usual cool detachment. "What is it?" I asked, stepping out of the billing department into the quiet hallway. "I just got an alert on the title search." Nadine said, "There is a new inquiry, a hard pull from a subprime lender. It looks like they are trying to refinance the entire mortgage, plus the HELOC, into a new consolidated loan. Can she do that?" I asked. "Her credit is terrible." "A loan?" "No," Nadine said, "but Miles Rourke is listed as a co-applicant, and here's the danger. Eva, if they push this refinance through before we file the quiet title action, they effectively pay off the fraudulent loans with a new loan. It muddies the water. The bank you are disputing with gets paid, so they close the fraud investigation. And then you are fighting a new lender who claims they acted in good faith. It makes the untangling process 3 times as expensive and takes twice as long." My stomach dropped. "So what do we do?" "We have to serve her," Nadine said. "We have to serve her with the lawsuit for fraud and partition before she signs those closing papers. Once the suit is filed and served, we record a lis pendens, a notice of pending legal action, against the title. No lender will touch that house until the case is over." "Okay," I said. "So serve her. Send the sheriff." "We can't," Nadine said. "She is dodging. The process server tried to catch her at home 3 times this week. She doesn't answer the door. She has papered over the front windows. She is bunkered down. Eva, she knows it is coming." I closed my eyes. She was hiding in the house I paid for, refusing to answer the door to the consequences of her actions. "She is having a party tomorrow." I said, "I know." Nadine said, "I saw the post." "She will have to open the door for guests." I said. Nadine hesitated. "Serving someone at a social event is aggressive. Eva, it is a nuclear option. It humiliates them in front of everyone. She humiliated me in front of the whole town." I said, "She called me a freeloader. She stole my identity. I don't care about her embarrassment anymore. I care about stopping that refinance." Nadine was silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice brisk and professional. "I will arrange for a private process server. Not a sheriff. Someone who blends in. We need you to be there." "Eva, why me?" "Because we need to identify her positively in the crowd," Nadine said. "And honestly, if she tries to run or cause a scene, Your presence keeps her grounded. She can't spin a story if you are standing right there with the receipts. I hung up. I looked at my hands. They were steady. I wasn't the little sister anymore. I wasn't the safety net. I was the anvil. The night of the party, the street was lined with cars. Tara had gone all out. There were balloons tied to the mailbox. I could hear music thumping from the backyard. A curated playlist of empowering pop anthems. I parked 3 houses down, in front of Glenn Mercer's house. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I wore a black blazer and dark jeans. I wasn't dressed for a party. I was dressed for business. A gray sedan pulled up behind me. A man stepped out. He was thick-set, wearing a generic polo shirt and holding a large manila envelope. "Ms. Kelly?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm Frank," he said. "I'm with the service bureau. You just point her out. I do the rest." We walked up the driveway together. The garage door was open, revealing a table laden with drinks. People were spilling out onto the driveway, laughing, holding red plastic cups. I recognized faces. Cousin Mike, Aunt Linda, the neighbors who had liked Tara's posts. The conversation died as I walked up the concrete. Heads turned. The music seemed to get louder in the sudden silence of the crowd. "Eva?" Aunt Linda stepped forward, a plastic wine glass in her hand. She looked confused, bordering on alarmed. "We didn't think you were coming." I didn't stop. I walked straight through the garage, Frank shadowing me like a bodyguard. "I am just here to see my sister." "Linda," I said. I walked into the kitchen. It was packed, but Tara wasn't there. "She is out back," someone called out, probably assuming I was there to make amends. "She is doing the speech." I walked to the sliding glass doors that led to the new deck, the deck I had unknowingly bought. Tara was standing on a bench, elevated above the crowd. She looked radiant. She was wearing a shimmering white dress. A ring light was set up on a tripod. A phone clamped in its center, broadcasting live to her followers. She was holding a microphone. "This year has been a fire," she was saying, her voice amplified by a portable speaker. "A literal fire. But you know what rises from the ashes? Phoenixes." The crowd cheered. Tara beamed, playing to the camera, tilting her head so the light hit her cheekbones just right. I had toxic people trying to drag me down. She continued, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. I had people who shared my blood, trying to count my pennies and tell me I wasn't worthy of this home. But look at us now. We are still standing. We are still here. I stepped onto the deck. Frank was right behind me. Tara saw me. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. But then she recovered. She widened her smile, turning it into a weapon. "And look," she shouted, pointing at me. Even the doubters showed up. "Eva, so glad you could make it to the victory lap." She was daring me. She was betting that I wouldn't cause a scene in front of 50 people in a live stream. She was betting on my shame. She bet wrong. I didn't say anything. I just nodded to Frank. Frank stepped forward. He walked up the steps of the deck, the wood thumping solidly under his boots. He stopped right in front of the bench. He blocked the ring light. "Tara Kelly?" he asked. His voice was loud, flat, and professional. Tara looked down at him, confused. "Excuse me? We are in the middle of a—" "You are Tara Kelly?" Frank repeated. "Yes, but—" Frank thrust the manila envelope toward her. It hit her chest, reflexively. She grabbed it to stop it from falling. "You are served," Frank said. "Summons and complaint for fraud, forgery, and partition of property." The silence that fell over the deck was absolute. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen and the distant chirp of a cricket. Tara stared at the envelope, then she looked at the phone on the tripod. The live stream was still running. The comments were scrolling up the side of the screen. Her face changed. It wasn't a slow transition. It was a collapse. The smug, radiant mask of the phoenix dissolved, replaced by the raw, terrified face of a woman who had just been handed her own destruction. She stammered. This is a prank. It is not a prank." I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the silence, it carried to the back of the yard. It is a lawsuit. Tara, it is the end of the line. The guests started to murmur. Phones were raised. People were recording the recording. Suddenly, a voice rang out from near the barbecue grill. "Wait a second," the voice said. I turned. It was a man in a plaid shirt, holding a beer. He was looking past Tara, staring at the man standing near the back door. Miles Rourke. Miles had been watching, looking smug, but now he was trying to edge back into the shadows. "I know you," the guest said, pointing his beer bottle. "You are Miles Rourke. You are the guy who scammed my brother-in-law on that solar panel investment deal 3 years ago." The murmur turned into a buzz. "No," Miles said, putting his hands up, "you have the wrong guy." "I don't think I do," the guest said, stepping forward. "You took $5,000 for permits and then disappeared. My brother-in-law sued you, but you claimed bankruptcy." The crowd turned. The New Beginnings narrative was dissolving in real time. The financial genius boyfriend was being outed as a con artist. The successful homeowner was holding a fraud lawsuit. Tara looked at the camera. She looked at the guests. She looked at me. She jumped down from the bench, abandoning the microphone. She grabbed my arm, her grip painful and desperate. Inside, she hissed. Now, she dragged me through the kitchen, ignoring the staring faces of our family. She pulled me into the den and slammed the door. The noise of the party was muffled, but the tension in the room was screaming. "Are you insane?" she screamed, turning on me. "You did that on a live stream? You did that in front of Miles?" "I did it before you could refinance," I said calmly. "Refinance?" She laughed. A hysterical, jagged sound. "I was doing that to pay you back. I was going to pay off the HELOC. You were going to use a new loan to hide the forgery." I said, "And you were going to put me on that one too, weren't you? Or maybe Mom? Who was the co-borrower this time? Tara?" She stopped screaming. She started to cry. She slumped against the door, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, her white dress billowing around her like a deflated parachute. "Ava, please," she sobbed. "You have to stop this. They will take the house. The girls will see this. You should have thought about the girls when you signed my name." I said, "Listen," she said, scrambling up to her knees. "I can fix this. I can go out there right now. I can get on the mic. I will tell them you paid. I will tell them you are the best sister in the world. I will tell them I was just stressed. I will give you the credit. Ava, isn't that what you want? You want everyone to know you were the hero?" I stared at her. She still didn't get it. She thought this was about vanity. She thought I was doing this because I wanted a round of applause. "I don't want to be the hero. Tara," I said, "I want to be solvent. I don't want your praise. I want my name off your debt. I can't take it off," she wailed. "I don't have the income." "Then you have to sell the house." I said, "No!" she screamed, pounding her fist on the floor. "It is my house. It is my victory." The door opened. Marlene stood there. My mother. She looked small, gray, and trembling. Behind her, standing in the hallway like a sentinel, was Nadine Cross. I had texted her the moment Frank handed over the papers. "Mom?" Tara said, wiping her face. "Mom, tell her she can't do this." Marlene looked at Tara, then she looked at me. She looked at Nadine, who was holding a briefcase and looking entirely unimpressed by the tears. "Ms. Kelly," Nadine said to my mother, "you are a witness to this conversation. You are also named in the discovery documents regarding the previous loan transfer." Marlene flinched. "Mom, don't say anything," Tara shrieked. Marlene took a deep breath. She looked at Tara with a sadness that seemed to stretch back 30 years. "I can't do it anymore." "Tara," Marlene whispered. "What?" Tara asked. "I signed it," Marlene said. The room went dead silent. "What did you sign?" "Mom?" I asked gently. Marlene looked at me, tears spilling over her lashes. "The first loan," she said. "The one at the credit union. And the paper for the notary." Tara gasped. "Mom, she told me you knew." Marlene cried out, turning to me, her voice breaking. She told me you were busy at work and couldn't get to the bank, and that you said it was okay for me to sign for you. She said it was just a formality. You forged my signature? I asked. My own mother? I thought I was helping. Marlene sobbed. She said if we didn't get the money that day, the lights would get cut off. She said you would agree later. I looked at Tara. She wasn't crying anymore. She was staring at the wall, her face hard and cold. She had manipulated our mother into committing a felony to cover her own tracks. She had weaponized Marlene's fear to steal from me. You used Mom. I said. The disgust I felt was so heavy I could barely speak. You made Mom a criminal. She is your mother too. Tara spat. She should have helped. Nadine stepped into the room. That is enough, Nadine said. We have an admission of forgery and conspiracy to commit fraud, witnessed by legal counsel. The party is over. Ladies, Tara stood up. She smoothed her dress. She looked at me with eyes that were black holes of resentment. I will never forgive you for this, she said. I know, I said, and I'm finally okay with that. I reached into my large tote bag. I pulled out the binder. It was 3 inches thick. It had color-coded tabs, bank transfers, utility fraud, HELOC forgery, Lowe's account, notary logs. I walked over to the coffee table and set it down. It made a heavy, definitive thud. This is for you, I said, and for the court. It is every dollar, every date, every lie. Read it or don't. But this is what is going to the judge on Monday. I turned to my mother. Mom, I said, you need to go home. You need to get your own lawyer. Because when this ship goes down, she is going to try to pull you under with her. Marlene nodded, sobbing silently. I walked out of the den. The kitchen was empty. The guests had fled. The revelation about Miles, combined with the process server, had popped the balloon. The New Beginnings party had turned into a crime scene. I walked out to the deck. The ring light was still on. The phone was still recording. Tara was standing in the kitchen doorway, staring out at the empty yard. She looked like a ghost. She walked slowly toward the deck. Drawn by the light, she stood in front of the camera. The comments were scrolling fast now. What just happened? Did she just get sued? Is the boyfriend really a scammer? OMG, look at her face. Tara stared into the lens. She looked at her reflection. She looked for the filter, the angle, the validation. But there was nothing there. Just a woman in a fancy dress standing in a house she didn't own, surrounded by the wreckage of lies she had told to keep it. She didn't reach out to turn off the stream. She just stared, as if she didn't know who she was if no one was clapping. I walked past her, down the stairs, and into the cool night air. Frank was waiting by my car. Did it go okay? He asked. Yes. Frank, I said. It went exactly how it had to go. I got in my car. I drove away from 402 Maple Drive. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't wonder if they would lose it. I knew they would. The math always wins in the end. I drove toward the city, toward my small apartment with the high rent and the balcony. I rolled down the windows. The air rushed in, smelling of rain and asphalt. I took a deep breath. It cost me $30,000. It cost me my relationship with my sister. It cost me the illusion of a happy family. But as I merged onto the highway, watching the lights of Briar Glen fade into the darkness behind me, I realized something. I wasn't a freeloader. I wasn't a victim. I was free. Thank you so much for listening to My Sister Proudly Posted on FB the day I moved out. It has been a journey walking in Eva's shoes, and I hope her story of quiet strength and factual vindication resonated with you. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more realistic, high-stakes family dramas, please make sure to subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel. And tell me in the comments, do you think Eva did the right thing by serving the papers at the party? Or was it too harsh? Let me know your thoughts in English. Until next time, keep your receipts.